My name is Tom Kerslake, and I'm glad to say I'm a solar array engineer at the NASA Glenn Research Center in Cleveland, Ohio. I'm very glad to say and very excited to say that I get to work on solar arrays for the asteroid redirect mission, and more specifically, the solar electric propulsion module that the solar array will power. And the reason that's exciting is we feel that that's a great stepping stone to get humans to Mars, because we're going to be able to launch, travel millions of miles in space. We're going to go out to an asteroid or perhaps even one of the moons of Mars and grab a very large boulder and redirect it all the way back into Earth orbit. And that is a great precursor demonstration of the engineering and technology, not only for the solar array, but the solar electric propulsion system, because in the future, then we're going to be able to move even larger payloads that will be habitats and landers and all the equipment that humans are going to need to eventually get to Mars orbit and eventually down to the surface of Mars. NASA, over the years, with its contractor teams, have been developing very advanced, lightweight, flexible solar arrays, and in fact one of them was launched to Mars and it performed beautifully on the surface of Mars to provide power to the Phoenix lander. NASA and its partners have been developing advanced solar array technology that can be used not only on the solar electric propulsion module to redirect an asteroid, but it can be grown in size and be used eventually to move around even larger objects than our asteroid material, and eventually allow humans to get to the surface of Mars.
You're listening to Our Next Giant Leap, a podcast that's out of this world. And now, here is your host, Mike Williams.
Hello, everyone, and welcome back to another episode of Our Next Giant Leap. I am your host, Mike Williams. Thank you for tuning in today. This show is recorded live on TalkShoe every other Tuesday at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time here in the U.S. Today, we're going to be talking about the Asteroid Redirect Mission. The Asteroid Redirect Mission is a robotic mission currently being developed by NASA. The first task for ARM is the characterization of over 1,000 small near-Earth asteroids, which is underway right now. Once they select the perfect candidate, the spacecraft will launch aboard a Delta IV heavy rocket or the Space Launch System, if it's ready, visit the large near-Earth asteroid that has been selected, collect a 1-ton boulder from its surface, and redirect it into what is called a distant retrograde orbit around the Moon. A DRO is a very stable orbit that can sustain the boulder for hundreds of years. All of this will take place within an 18-month to 2-year time frame. Once in orbit, astronauts will launch aboard the SLS, explore it, and return with samples in the 2025 time frame. The Asteroid Redirect Mission, or ARM as it's called, is part of a plan to test out new technologies and spaceflight experience needed for a human mission to Mars sometime in the 2030s. Here's a clip that will explain a little bit more about what the mission is.
NASA is developing the first ever mission to identify, capture, and redirect a small asteroid or piece of a large asteroid to orbit the Moon, then send astronauts to visit it and collect samples in the 2020s. Using telescopes in space and on Earth, NASA and citizen astronomers are studying the thousands of near-Earth objects around us, including good candidates for the Asteroid Redirect Mission and hazardous ones we want to track. The robotic capture mission will prove a number of the capabilities humans will need to reach Mars in the 2030s, including advanced solar electric propulsion, an efficient way to move larger cargo payloads into deep space. NASA is studying 2 robotic concepts to capture an asteroid. The first concept would fully enclose a small asteroid in an inflatable mechanism. The second would use robotic arms to retrieve a boulder from the surface of a much larger asteroid. Each concept also provides opportunities to demonstrate techniques to alter the course of large objects in deep space, a capability that could help us defend Earth from impacts in the future. After capturing an asteroid, the robotic spacecraft will move it to a stable orbit around the Moon, where it could remain for hundreds of years. The asteroid will be so small that even if it did approach the Earth, it would burn up in the atmosphere and disintegrate before it could reach the surface. In the 2020s, astronauts aboard an Orion spacecraft and Space Launch System rocket will launch toward lunar orbit, gaining a boost in speed from the Moon's gravity to rendezvous with the asteroid. The journey will be the farthest humans have ever traveled into deep space. Orion will dock with the robotic spacecraft carrying the asteroid. Astronauts will conduct spacewalks to collect samples of the asteroid that could hold clues to the origins of our solar system and life on Earth. The crew will return home aboard Orion, having ushered in a new era of human spaceflight and scientific research. Groundbreaking work is underway to prepare for these human missions to deep space. This year, NASA will conduct the first uncrewed flight test of Orion. Aboard the International Space Station, NASA and its international partners are learning how humans can live and work in space for long periods. Astronauts on Earth are using underwater environments to test spacesuits, tools, and techniques they'll need to explore an asteroid. The lessons we learn and new technologies we prove through the asteroid redirect mission will put humans one giant leap closer to Mars.
The spacecraft will use solar electric propulsion to create the thrust it needs to propel it to its destination. SEP uses 2 components to create the thrust needed for its engines. It uses a huge advanced solar array along with xenon to push the ion engines. It's a much more efficient way to create thrust rather than using chemical rockets. The power created will be 50 kilowatts, the most power ever created by a solar electric propulsion spacecraft. Just to give you some perspective, the Dawn mission only used 2.5 kilowatts of power. Here's a little bit more about what SEP actually is.
The objective of the Solar Electric Propulsion Project is to enable or be a step change in solar electric propulsion. Right now, it's used in station keeping for a lot of geocomsats. What we're trying to do is take it a step further and have this electric propulsion used as the primary propulsion for satellites. We need to make larger solar arrays that can power these higher power thrusters. The issue with that is you need them to be stowed for your launch vehicle, and they need to be autonomously deployed. We also have support from folks at Glenn and Langley supporting that work. Historically, there was the NSTAR mission and Dawn, and those were on the order of about 2.5 kilowatts of electric propulsion. The advanced EHF was on the order of 10 kilowatts, and that's where they utilized electric propulsion in a manner that it was not designed for, and it succeeded. It saved $1 billion asset. And then what we're looking at is a 30 kilowatt SEP TDM. So this would be a step change from the current state of the art. So it's about a factor of 3 to then something that could support human exploration. And that's on the order of 100 kilowatts, 300 kilowatts. What exactly that is, we don't know for sure because the different architectures are trading, but it's on the order of 100 to 200 kilowatts for human exploration. So as far as compared to chemical propulsion, we don't need as much propellant, and electric propulsion is much more efficient as well. And we're utilizing power from the sun to power our thrusters and also other onboard electronics. So we're utilizing capturing the sun's power with our arrays, using that to power our thrusters. So our tanks that we need to power our thrusters, the xenon, are much smaller than what you would utilize for chemical propulsion. So what that does is it allows you to either send more payload or to utilize smaller launch vehicles, both of which save you a lot of money because it costs so much to send things into space. There's four main objectives for the mission. There's technology, so technology development, infusing new technology. There's capability, so having a new capability, a new system, an integrated system, which is again the same, and extensibility, something that can be used not only for this TDM, but infused for human missions and also for industry. So those would be our four objectives that we're gearing towards what this mission will be targeted. SEP can be applied to a broad range of missions. They would range from science missions to human exploration missions to DoD to satellite servicing to a plethora of industry opportunities. So there's a lot of things that this particular TDM could enable.
Grabbing a boulder from an asteroid is no easy task. There were two competing designs. One was a grapple and the other was a capture bag type design. The winning one was the capture bag. How it happens is this. The capture mechanism is an inflatable structure which deploys a 15-meter capture bag. Clinch lines close the bag to capture the asteroid. Once the asteroid is in lunar orbit, the Orion space capsule launched aboard the Space Launch System will take off and rendezvous with the robotic spacecraft and asteroid. There will be a two-person crew for this mission, which is slated for around 2025. Once the astronauts arrive, they will don spacesuits and depressurize the capsule. Then they will climb out onto the robotic spacecraft and over to the asteroid to take samples and return them back to Earth. The duration of this mission will be 22 to 25 days. And now it's time for the question of the week. Has there ever been drinking of alcohol in space? Well, the short answer, at least for the U.S. space program, is no. However, our Russian colleagues have been known to celebrate certain occasions by toasting with a shot of vodka or two. This happened at times during the Russian Mir space station program with holidays like New Year's and Russian holidays. Probably some of the more awkward incidents happened during the Shuttle Mir program when cosmonauts would celebrate with a toast of vodka while their American counterparts would have to stand by and watch. However, there was one time in America's space program where we came close to having a drink in space, and that was during Skylab, America's first space station. During Skylab, astronauts had a lot more room than on the Apollo spacecraft that went to the moon. They even had the first space shower on board, and the food was much more appetizing. So there had been talk about sending up wine for the astronauts to have with their dinner. They went as far as letting astronauts try out different wines to see what kind they wanted sent up. But at the last minute, NASA managers thought it would not look so good for astronauts to be drinking on a government space station funded by American tax dollars. So the idea of having wine on board was scrubbed from the program. For the American space program, at least, space has been a dry territory. But maybe that will change with upcoming commercial launches. Who knows? The asteroid redirect mission is definitely a game changer as far as deep space exploration goes. When astronauts rendezvous with the spacecraft and asteroid in lunar orbit, it will be the farthest humans have ever traveled in space. During these exploration missions, new technologies, designs, and procedures will be tested, which is important for our journey to Mars. So that's our show for today. As always, there will be links to everything I talked about in the show notes, and you could find those by going to mikewilliamsinc.wordpress.com and clicking on the podcast button. Our next episode will be on Tuesday, March 1st, the Space Launch System, the rocket that will take us to Mars and beyond. It will air live on TalkShoe at 7:30 p.m. Eastern Time, and for that episode I will have a special guest host. Andrew Serfozo will be stopping by to help me out with the show. A longtime friend, so I look forward to having him here on the show. And as always, I want to thank everyone for joining me today. If you have any questions or comments, you can drop me a voicemail at 321-351-8539 or send me an email at mikewilliams573@gmail.com. And don't forget to follow the show on Twitter at OurNextGiantLP. Have a great couple of weeks, and I'll see you next time on our next Giant Leap. Bye, everybody.